Hi, good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so very much for joining us tonight for part one of the arrangements, dealing with grief in the time of a pandemic. Thank you so much, you guys, for joining us tonight. For all of our YouTube viewers, for our Facebook viewers, thank you and welcome. We have people from Raymond Word Productions that are in the chat boxes. So you guys, please feel free to reach out to us, share with us your thoughts. You'll see some comments coming across the screen. We want you guys to really interact with us tonight as we go forth and we really start diving into dealing with grief during the time of a pandemic. We want to send a special shout out to all of you because we really appreciate your time. We appreciate everything. And we're glad you guys are here with us. Thank you guys so much. And we're going to go ahead and get started with part one of the arrangements, dealing with grief during the time of a pandemic. Good evening and welcome to the debut of part one of the arrangements, dealing with grief in the time of a pandemic. I'm Cara Clark, your host, and I'm joined by Mr. Ken R. Wiggins, founder and CEO of Raymond Word Productions. Now, Ken is also the director and one of the writers of the arrangements. Hi, Ken.
Hello. How are you this evening?
I'm doing wonderful. How about yourself?
I am great. I'm excited, nervous, scared, all of that good stuff, but we here.
We'll get through it. We'll get through it. And you know what? We're here. We're here and we're at the time. And so before we premiere the documentary, let's discuss the inspiration and process.
Okay.
Can you help us understand how the idea of the story came about and what was the inspiration?
Yeah. So back in June, Patricia, my writing partner, she lost her son. Mm-hmm. And, she was just dealing with a lot. She had to plan a funeral. He didn't die of COVID, but he died during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. We'd just been in lockdown for a few months and he just passed. And so she had to deal with a lot, planning the funeral in the time of the pandemic, trying to figure things out. And everything she went through, she just kind of felt like she needed a release. So she called our other partner, Tracy. And while she and Tracy was talking, they was like, you know what, we need to include Ken in this conversation, get his feedback. And so, we planned what I thought was a catch-up conversation because we all used to do, theater back at our old church. And so over the years, we kind of stay in contact, get together, eat a meal, talk on the phone, what have you. So I thought we were doing a catch-up. And during that catch-up, it kind of snowhilled into, hey, this is a story that we need to tell and let's form a business and do all of this. And so that's what happened. And right when we had started the ball rolling for, building out this story, however we were going to choose to do it, I lost my uncle.
And oh, wow. I'm sorry to hear that.
My uncle. Thank you. I lost my uncle from COVID. Mm-hmm. And so what Patricia had experienced a month ahead, I was, helping my cousin plan his funeral and kind of getting a feel for what was going on at that same time. So, her story and my background, we kind of merged together and started the ball rolling with this documentary. Yeah.
Wow. And so you're not talking about something you heard, you're talking about something you've experienced. Wow.
Something we've experienced. We didn't want to experience it.
I know.
I prefer telling other people's stories.
Right. Well, how difficult was it to film?
It was quite difficult to film because, we're talking about a pandemic and we have CDC guidelines. And so it's like, okay, we need to do filming, but we need to make sure that we're abiding by CDC guidelines. Last thing we wanted to do was we're up here talking about this is what you need to do. And, we're standing 2 feet together, no mask on, anything like that.
Right.
We had to find locations where we could social distance and we had to ensure that everyone was, masking up and everything, washing your hands, all that good stuff. There's a scene where Miss Pat and Miss Regina are sitting on the bench together. And so we was like, you know what, wear your mask. You're sitting on the bench together. We don't want to make anyone think that, we were disobeying, CDC
Right,
guidelines or anything.
right.
And, we did some filming outside. It was cold. It
Yeah.
was in December, and we breaking between cuts to go inside and warm up. You were there,
Yeah,
so
yeah, it was cold.
it was cold. It was
It
cold,
was cold.
but we got through it.
Wow. And you know what? I'm sure there were a lot of challenges with that. Are there any other kind of challenges you can think of you guys would have faced while you were filming?
Well, our background comes from theater.
Okay.
So having done theater for so many years, I always like to include what I call an element of surprise in my productions and whatnot. So
Okay.
from time to time, I would include some type of video editing, some footage that we shot outside or something that was unexpected to, keep the audience on their toes, make sure they're paying attention.
Mhm.
And so going from live audience
Uh-huh.
to digital media, video, podcasting, this, that, you don't have that immediate connection with the audience.
Right.
And so one of the things
That energy that keeps you
exactly,
going. Yeah.
is the audience getting what we're saying? Are they
Yeah.
responding? We can take a side look real quick to see what the faces are telling you, so you know what energy to bring back. And so we didn't have any of that.
Wow.
So what we had to do was we had to think differently. How can we build an emotional connection with the audience, telling our story and making sure that they're getting the lessons and the life experiences that we're trying to convey, doing that over video. So, we went through a lot of rewrites.
Oh yeah.
And so
Oh, yeah.
something that it was fun,
Yeah.
but it was challenging.
So speaking of rewrites, let's talk about that a little bit. How closely did you follow the original script?
So our script, I guess you can say pretty good because, coming from theater, we learned, you write your script and then, as you're acting it out, you may need to make some changes there. And so that was the mindset that we went into this doing. We wrote our script and then we auditioned some, met with some people whose stories we wanted to include. Mortuary staff, grievers,
Wow.
therapists, that type
Wow.
of thing. And what we did not know is that when you do a documentary, you do it backwards. You do all your filming up front.
Oh,
Just let
wow.
people just talk.
Okay.
And then you look at the videos that you have and you
Wow.
find a common story and
Uh-huh.
write your script off of that.
Wow.
So that was a learning curve for us. But we fought through it. So I think that we got something that is a nice product that is going to help people.
Okay. So now with all the rewrites and everything, do you feel like the final result was kind of true to the original concept, or did you find yourself altering your script based on the footage?
So I feel like we might not have stayed true to the letter of our script,
Okay.
but the spirit of it is there. So
Awesome.
we wanted to ensure that we were giving people tools on how to plan a funeral in a pandemic.
Yes.
Nobody ever imagined that we would be having funerals on Zoom. You
Right.
know?
I didn't even know what Zoom was. I knew GoToMeeting, but not Zoom.
We Skype at work. We weren't thinking about doing a funeral on Zoom. I mean, I think a few years ago, the Kojic Bishop passed and his funeral was on live stream, but it was not live stream because people couldn't attend the funeral. It was live stream because the church was too small for everyone that wanted to attend.
Yes.
So that was my first experience with a video funeral. I did not, or Michael Jackson. We saw that on Michael Jackson and Whitney Houston. We saw those on television, but we didn't expect that to be
a norm
for everyday people. So we wanted to give people tools on how to plan a video funeral. How to deal with grief during that time and how to get back to a life of normalcy. In the Black family, We are used to when someone dies, your house is open from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. People are bringing food. Everybody's coming to see you and all of that. Well, you can't do that in a pandemic.
Right.
That kind
But
of
so what do you hope your viewers will get after seeing part 1 and 2 of the documentary then?
We're hoping that people will have those tools, and know what to expect, what to deal with. You're not going to have everyone that's there to kind of guide you and help you plan the funeral or, take your mind off of things for a little bit of time. We know that the hardest part with dealing with grief is the day after the funeral.
Right. Yes.
The funeral
everybody's gone.
Exactly. Everyone's gone.
Yeah.
The funeral home has picked up the chairs and the lectern. The grief is going off the door. You don't have no one bringing food in every few minutes. All you are is left with your thoughts and your memories.
Yes.
And so in the time of the pandemic, that's changed. You're left with your thoughts and your memories the entire time because no one can be around. People are texting you. People are calling you. You don't feel like texting and answering every phone call.
Right.
You have to plan the funeral. You have to plan the arrangements.
Yes.
You have to, pick out clothes and pick out pictures and write an obituary and all of that by yourself.
Wow.
And so we wanted to give people tools on how to do those things and, how to do self-care, how to get back to some sense of normalcy when it's all over.
And I'm sure that is so needed. So needed.
Yeah. One of the things that Patricia was dealing with when she lost her son was, her family is everywhere. Patricia lives here in Charlotte, but her family is everywhere. So coordinating how to ensure that his children and his siblings and his father and all of that could be involved in the process.
Yes.
While they're all over the United States. Same with my uncle, my cousin was dealing with, how to ensure that everyone felt connected in the services.
Right.
While still in the midst of a pandemic.
Right. Wow. So that's all good stuff. So what do you have next on the horizon? What's next?
Man, we have a lot of good stuff. I can't tell you everything, but I will tell you this. I will tell you this, that I have escaped death 4 times. And everyone is always talking about, Ken, you need to tell your story. You need to tell your story. You need to tell your story. So we're going to work on an opportunity for me to tell my story, how God, helped me escape death 4 times.
Wow.
Also, we're working on a web series. I'm excited about that. The web series is about loosely based on Samson. Yeah, but Samson is going to be in the 21st century.
I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty cool. It's going to be pretty cool. We're writing it. We're going to do each chapter of Judges, 13, 14, 15, and 16 is going to be a season.
Nice.
And so, but it's going to be modernized. And so you're going to have to stay tuned and look for the clues to figure out who Delilah is and all of that good stuff. So yeah, we're excited about that.
Wow.
And we're going to be doing a monthly series called The Word I Heard.
Okay.
Where we're just kind of giving you, some fun stuff, just keeping you engaged. So we want to make sure that, everyone is engaged, looking forward to what we're doing and all that good stuff. So yeah, we're working hard.
Awesome. That's good stuff. That's some good stuff.
Yeah,
so do you have any last word?
My last words is, this is a short film. We have about 30 minutes of information that we're going to be splitting between this week and next week. We want you to be engaged. We want to hear your feedback. We hope that you enjoy our final product. This is new for us. We're coming from theater and we're stepping into an arena that is foreign to us. We're all in school and we're We're taking what we're learning in our classes and applying it here within our business. And we're nervous, we're excited, but we want you to come on this journey with us. When we put out those audition calls for our web series and our other projects, respond to us. If you want to, get connected with us, help us out, work with us, shoot us an email at info@rhamaword.com. We're excited, we're nervous, we're scared, but we're going to bring you on this journey with us. So stay tuned.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Mr. Ken Wiggins, the founder and CEO of Rhema Word Productions. Ken, thank you so very much for taking time to speak with us this evening. And so without further ado, Rhema Word Productions presents to you The Arrangements, Dealing with Grief in the Time of a Pandemic.
Yay.
2020 is forever etched in history as the time when a pandemic of epic proportions invaded our lives and tested our resiliency. We woke up and started our normal day, and by bedtime that same day, we were under a worldwide lockdown. Grocery store shelves were empty, and seemingly life had stopped. Nonetheless, death continued. It is an inevitable event that all living beings must one day face.
My brother, who passed away, he got sick, and we thought maybe it was just a little flu, and ended up he had the COVID virus, and went to the hospital, was fine for about 5 days, and it was unbelief.
Bereavement is a painful, stressful, and a difficult journey at the best of times. But grieving the loss of a loved one is especially challenging during a worldwide pandemic. We live in highly uncertain times and are surrounded by fear, anxiety, and illness. The pandemic has altered our view of normalcy. Life has changed its course, and the transition for many is confusing. But how do you respond to death during a pandemic? A pandemic of epic proportions invaded our lives and tested our resiliency. We woke up and started our normal day, and by bedtime that same day, we were under a worldwide lockdown. Grocery store shelves were empty, and seemingly life had stopped. Nonetheless, death continued. It is an inevitable event that all living beings must one day face.
My brother, who passed away, he got sick, and we thought maybe it was just a little flu, and ended up he had the COVID virus, and went to the hospital, was fine for about 5 days, and it was unbelief.
Bereavement is a painful, stressful, and a difficult journey at the best of times. But grieving the loss of a loved one is especially challenging during a worldwide pandemic. We live in highly uncertain times and are surrounded by and illness. The pandemic has altered our view.
Hey, you guys. Okay, so we're back with you. We had just one technical difficulty, but here we go.
– 2020 is forever etched in history as the time when a pandemic of epic proportions invaded our lives and tested our resiliency. We woke up and started our normal day, and by bedtime that same day, we were under a worldwide lockdown. Grocery store shelves were empty, and seemingly life had stopped. Nonetheless, death continued. It is an inevitable event that all living beings must one day face.
My brother, who passed away, he got sick, and we thought maybe it was just a little flu, and Ended up he had the COVID virus and went to the hospital, was fine for about 5 days, and it was unbelief.
Bereavement is a painful, stressful, and a difficult journey at the best of times. But grieving the loss of a loved one is especially challenging during a worldwide pandemic. We live in highly uncertain times and are surrounded by fear, anxiety, and illness. The pandemic has altered our view of normalcy. Life has changed its course, and the transition for many is confusing. But how do you respond to death during a pandemic? In this new reality, how do you deal with death and the work associated with saying goodbye to your loved ones? This series will focus on the initial shock of loss, the mortuary experiences, the family distractions, the final arrangements, the new life.
How we found out that he passed was on Facebook. One of my sisters went on Facebook and his wife put on that he passed. She did not pick up the phone and call us and told us. The hurting part was he was in New York, we were here in Charlotte. So anything that was done, we couldn't go. We couldn't be there. So we decided to do our own thing at home, and we did a service for him, which was beautiful on Zoom. It was nothing else we could do, you know.
April 1st, I got my first COVID-19 case. And I said to myself, it's not really going to affect me that much. I'm a small little funeral home in the suburbs of New York City. And since then, the floodgates have opened, and it's been non-stop since. My philosophy is I never say no. We never say no to anybody. And I can't say no. How can you say no to somebody who's lost their loved one? How can you say no to somebody who's lost their child? How can you say no to somebody who's lost their grandparent? It's inhumane to say no.
What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make this as easy as I can for you, okay?
It's impacted us by causing a lot of stress on us in the funeral industry. One, because we have to protect ourselves. And even though we may pick someone up and bring them into our care, we don't know necessarily what they died from, because all the diagnoses of, or causes of death, it's not accurate anymore. At one point in time, 90% of our call volume, everyone died from COVID-19.
Family members are often challenged with making final arrangements for their loved ones. The stress of having to plan a funeral has been worsened with the onset of the pandemic.
The biggest challenge we had was he was married and his wife was in New York, and she decided not to participate with us. And that really was the hard part of it, As one of my sisters said, she's glad she wasn't in New York at the time. So we did it as his sisters and his nieces and nephews. We actually had to put everything together ourselves to have a service for him. And we actually did it for friends of his and just the family. And his wife didn't participate.
We're not looking at you and not feeling some of the pain that you feel. A funeral director that does not feel what a family feels sometimes, I think it's not really a compassionate person. But just know that we understand too, because 9 times out of 10, we've all experienced losing a loved one.
Michael was the most loving person there was. Even when he was not who he really was, he was so loving. And the one thing that happened, his wife decided she didn't want him to bother with his family. But that's the one thing he stood on. So anything we had, Michael was there. Michael was the one there. He got there. He went more than I went most of the time. And so the love that he had for his family, she couldn't take that from him. She tried her best, but she could not take that from him. But he became a man that people just loved him for who he was.
In order to be a funeral director or work in the funeral industry, you have to have compassion and understand that someone has lost a loved one. You can't think about yourself always, because in this industry, you're putting the families first. So customer service is very important, not just because we want you to come and use our funeral home, but because we are providing a service. We want to have a good reputation, And we want people to know that when you experience death, you can come to us and we're going to take care of you.
And when I look back over his life and I think things over, I look how good God has been to him. You know, so it hurt us, but we know he had lived his life.
The funeral services are just one part of the arrangements in the loss of a loved one.
People say, how are you making it day by day? No, it's moments during the day that make up the day. And when they come, instead of running from it, you almost have to run to it.
On our next series, we will talk more about those arrangements and some of the stages of grief.
Wow, 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 wow. Thank you guys so much. We certainly hope you guys have enjoyed it. That was a lot, you know, and as you can see, coronavirus has really caused a change in what we consider our everyday norm, even down to the fact of how we've had to deal with grief. You know, it's a different day. And this was just the beginning. So we thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. And, you know, grief is a funny thing. Sometimes you can be grieving and not even really realize it. And sometimes you can be depressed from grief and not even know it. And so grief and depression can manifest in many ways, and each person's experience is unique. You know, most people who've lost loved ones benefit from talking with qualified counselors. And so what we've done today is we've listed some resources on the screen for you guys to just kind of jot it down, take a look at it. You know, we'll actually post it on the Rhema Word Productions Facebook page, so you guys can have access to the resources that you can, the people and the resources that we have that can help you get through grief. You know, and how do you know if you're really dealing with grief? You know, you can ask yourself certain questions like, you know, am I having suicidal thoughts? Am I experiencing distress such as crying, insomnia, loss of appetite? Are you struggling to complete like everyday tasks, including self-care? You can't believe your loved one is really dead. All of those things are symptoms of the fact that you may be dealing with grief. And so today we want to encourage you to really just kind of examine yourself, to think about, am I dealing with grief? And if you're not sure, that's why there are resources. And so take what we've given you. You know, if you know you've lost a loved one, it doesn't have to be due to the pandemic. It could be you lost a loved one the year before the pandemic started and you just haven't dealt with it. What I'm saying is, and the whole point of this is to deal with it and deal with it to where you can become healthy and normal and unbroken again. And so again, if you're thinking about, you know, just even thinking, yes, this is me, then again, jot down some of these resources. Again, we'll post the resources on the Facebook page for Rhema Word Productions. And again, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'm your host, Cara Clark. We appreciate you guys. Next week, we'll delve deeper into grief and counseling. And so we look forward to seeing you then. Thank you and have a wonderful night.